Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Zone. And today we're going to break the meta again. I'm going to give you the best deck in the game. I'm going to explain how we got there, what the deck's evolution is, and why I think this deck is completely freaking busted for the meta right now. I think this is straight up the best deck. This isn't small sample size theater. This deck has been dominating secretly behind the scenes. Unless you follow Safetyblade on Twitter, you didn't know this existed. Before we get there, though, I'd like to invite you to please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, ring that notification bell, do all that good stuff. One, it would really help us out. We'd appreciate the help. It helps us grow. We're right around the corner from 3,000 subs, and you can help us get there. We'd super appreciate if you were willing to do so. It's free, does nothing but help us out. Two, we give you at least 2 brand new decks every weekday. We do a great job here of keeping you ahead of the meta, of finding you the best proven decks before anyone else knows they exist, to help you get infinite, to help you get those infinity tickets and infinity borders, to help you reach your goals in Marvel Snap. And finally, we have the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap kicking off in a couple weeks. We do the biggest giveaway of season passes every single month. So, sub, what are you waiting for? Help us out, and we'll do our best to help you out in Snap. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, a little more than 2 weeks ago, almost 3 now by the time you're seeing this, Owl God, who no one had really heard of in North America at that point, won 2 major tournaments with this move deck. At the time, I said, Owl God is onto something. This deck is extremely hard to play, right? This isn't for everyone. It maintains a 60% win rate to this day, but the Craven Silk Captain Marvel thing that this is doing with Jeff is extraordinarily powerful and worth starting to build around. Algod is now one of the meta kings, one of the best deck builders in the game. Everyone acknowledges this. One of the people that noticed Algod right after, but didn't actually get their own version out until about a week later, I told you this would be the best deck in the game. I got, honestly, in several corners, people were like, "You're crazy." Like Lambie's on a lot. Lambie played this, said it was busted. I played it, was like, "Oh my goodness!" It was originally running Hulkbuster for Vision. I was like, "There's something wrong with this deck. This is crazy powerful. This is one of the best things you can do in all of Marvel Snap. This is going to take over the meta. Darkhawk Good Stuff is everywhere. This is a better version of a Good Stuff deck." Lo and behold, 3 days later, Lambie goes undefeated, winning the biggest tournament of the month with this deck. It's now everywhere. It's widely considered the best deck. And yes, these are Silk decks. Remember, I've been telling you, I don't know, for a week and a half now, relax. Silk is in the spotlight caches coming out this Monday, I guess technically Monday night/Tuesday. Make sure you've been saving caches. Silk is worth getting. I think X23 is worth getting. That means if you have 4 spotlight caches, you can get 12,000 collector's tokens worth of cards. Amazing deal, especially amazing if you don't have Nebula, the 3rd card in there. We'll talk more about that later, though. But you've seen this deck. This is Lambie's Confusion deck. You've probably seen it under the name Silky Smooth when Lambie first posted it. He called it Confusion. And the reason I love that name is because I watched Lambie in the first stream when this started winning try and play this deck, and he was so confused. He could not figure out how that damn deck worked, and that's the best player in the game, right? So he simplifies it. He builds this amazingly strong, good stuff version of it, and it dominates. This is widely considered the best deck in the game right now. Won the biggest tournament, topping out on both Conquest and Ladder tier lists right now. It is extremely hard to beat. Well, we figured out how to beat it, or rather, Safety did. I've been telling y'all from day one on the channel, Safetyblade is a genius, and this is Safetyblade's genius deck. Now, let's talk about what makes it so good. First off, the prevalence of the other decks has pushed Killmonger at least a bit out of the meta, which means Nebula is great again, especially at controlling where your opponent wants to play cards. If you are worried about a Killmonger, you have armor there. And I'm aware armor seems to be some counter synergy with Shang-Chi, but in high stakes games, especially conquest games, you can wait to see what your opponent is doing before you decide whether you're going to aim for an armor or Shang-Chi. You also have several move options to move a big card away from an armor so you can still Shang-Chi it later in the game as necessary. So that armor and Shang-Chi work really well. Armor is also sometimes an auto win against those Nimrod decks that are otherwise the single best matchup against the Lambie Confusion version. You've naturally got your Craven package. Your Craven package here goes with Jeff, Silk, and Spider-Man. The card I am well, it also goes with a couple other cards, but we'll get there. The card I am was most surprised when I first looked at this to not see there was a card that that's Pump really made this archetype. No Captain Marvel here. Captain Marvel ends up not quite fitting, and we'll get to one in a minute. Spider-Man is meant to be your disruption, and that disruption is meant to give you a cheap Miles Morales to play along with Spidey. Your goal on so you go Nebula, you go something like either Craven or Armor or Spider-Ham, right? Or Jeff as the or Silk, whatever. You've got 1,000 twos in this deck. It's like a Sarah deck with all the twos. So you get one of these extra cards down, ideally Craven, into something like Silk or Silk into Craven, as the case may be. I don't really care which is which, because if you get Silk down first, then you can go Craven and Miles the next turn. If not, you can go Spider-Man, and then you can go Miles in a different 2 the next turn. Your goal on turn 5 is, generally speaking, to play Wave and one of the 2s. If that 2 is Silk, you win, right? If that 2 is Jeff, you're in really great shape. What you're doing by doing this is you are saying you want to have an explosive last turn. Almost every deck in the game, including those like big death and destroy decks, are trying to like kill that Nimrod twice. And at that point, Arrow with Wave, there's no Doom in the meta, right? Doom was the problem for a long time with the reworked Arrow, in that they were just putting at the time 15, now it would be 13 power all across the board, and your Arrow didn't really matter with that was happening. Well, now that Wave says your Arrow is OP. Your Arrow says this card gets played where I want. I'm struggling with Shuri. I know they went Shuri into Red Skull, and now I know they're Taskmastering, right? That Taskmaster's going to beat me. But they can only play one card. Arrow that right over. You win the game. Have a great day. You also have the option on that last turn of Magneto or Shang-Chi. You have multiple different cards that can win you the game at that point. Magneto especially has some nice value here, as does Arrow, to pull something on a Craven. Pulling something onto that Craven makes Arrow a 10 or Magneto a 14 or more power, which means that Magneto means that this just rolls those Darkhawk decks that are such trouble. They want to play more than one thing last turn. Well, no, not with Magneto saying, not with Wave, and then Magneto says all of that goes in one place. Then they're just dropping a big body, right? Like they're gonna drop an Infinite. Well, that's what Shang is for. Shang does an awesome, awesome job of answering that nonsense. Spider-Ham helps solve any potential Doom issues or other shenanigans, like a null that where you might have trouble predicting, or so and so on and so forth. This deck is completely freaking sick. This deck is completely freaking sick. You need to try it to see exactly how good it is. I have another version of this deck that we'll get to within the next couple of days, but this, I think, is about as good as it gets in Marvel Snap right now as far as winning. Safety's been playing this literally all week because he just can't stop playing it because he's addicted to how good it is. He's got an 85% win rate in a week of gameplay. That's absurd. This deck is awesome. The only problem you're going to have is you have to get a little used to priority, because you want priority with Arrow and you want to lose it with Shang, so you need to start reading the board early. And you need to get used to that Armor Shang-Chi thing, and you need to know enough of the meta to know which tech card you want to play after Wave. If you can do all of those things, this deck is going to be completely, completely insane for you. I look forward to you trying it out, and the comments being like the first 3 people being like, I can't win with this, and then everyone else being like, oh, well, I hit infinite in my sleep with this. All right, but Safety also built this funner version. Funner is not a word. This significantly more fun version. It's not as good or consistent, but y'all longtime viewers know that I love some Thanos. This version takes the same basic core and says, but what if I had a bunch of stones instead of trying to worry about one drop? And that's all it does, right? It's the same core of the deck. It's got Polaris as like almost a backup Spider-Man, another way to pump Craven. It's got Stegron for the same reasons. Stegron works almost as an anti-arrow on that last turn. One of my favorite things that happens in Snap is they're just like, oh, I'll just play one card here last turn. They clearly don't want to play there, and my one card there will steal a lane, and Stegron just says no. Like, and it's especially good if you don't wave. Stegron's one of the more underrated cards of the game. I've seen someone rank him as like a D tier card recently, and it's like, well, you haven't played with him. Because Stegron right now is really, really strong. Thanos just obviously makes the deck less consistent, but gives it some upside because now it has some location control. It has an extra move from Space Stone. It has the negatives from Soul Stone, etc., etc. So it's another cool version of the deck to play. I think this is the best version of Thanos move. Although, to be honest, I tested the other one fairly extensively. I only got a game or two in with this one. I just thought it was cool enough to share, given that this is the deck we're talking about. But this is the direct evolution of an entirely new best type of deck in the game. We know they wanted Move to be a tier 1 archetype. They have succeeded. I think that, like, there's a real argument that the first three decks we looked at, the Owl God version, the Lambi version, and the Safetyblade version might be like the three best decks in the game. And I think the one that has the best matchup into the Mirror, and the best matchup into the Good Stuff decks, and the best matchup into the Shuri decks is this one from Safety. So please try it out. Spread the word, because this one is going to be a banger. See you tomorrow for another Snap Take. We'll have two more awesome decks for you. Then Tuesday, we're going to break down the X23, but really Silk Spotlight caches. You know the drill. Catch you soon. Thanks for watching.